Vault is brought to you by Saltire Energy, who continue to lead the way in the oil industry when it comes to specialist equipment rental. By Lux Scott, a jet-class luxury vehicle company. If you're looking to travel anywhere in style, be it an event or a wedding, please look the guys up. By Fowler Mackenzie, established in 2001, who have the longest CalCip standing seam system in Scotland, here for all your roofing and cladding needs. And by HCS, a Scottish engineering company who for the last 20 years has built a huge reputation for manufacturing high quality, bespoke equipment for the oil industry. Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to this brand new episode of The Vault. This is episode 3. So if you're watching for the very first time, this is quite a simple format. During the pandemic, I conducted a host of Zoom interviews for what was my old written blog page. So what I've decided to do is to re-edit them and repackage them and now bring them to you as brand new video presentations. And I'm delighted to say that my next guest is Aberdeen born and bred. It is Willie Falconer. Willie was born in Aberdeen and realised his dream when he signed for his hometown club on the 9th of April 1982. For the next 6 years, Willie went on to play 103 games for the club, scoring 18 goals. He won a league championship medal in the mid-80s. I began my chat with Willie by asking him about the time when he signed for Aberdeen.
Process was probably I was playing for Northfield school level and got picked for the Aberdeen Select around about that time. So a lot of the guys in that select team got invited down to Pittodrie on a Thursday night to train at the car park with Bobby Clark and Lenny Taylor, Teddy Scott at that time as well. So that's it came about that. I think it was about 3 of us out of the Northfield team, and then all the other teams running at Aberdeen got picked, players to get picked, and they whittled it down to about a squad of 16 that used to train on the car park on a freezing cold nights.
Remember it well. Were any other teams interested in you at that time? Can you recall?
Yeah, I was around about 14, 15 at the time, and obviously still living at home, so I was getting a few phone calls, like probably from the North East teams, where they were like in and about a lot of the Scottish teams at that time. So I got phone calls, Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Sunderland as well at the time, down in trials. There seemed to be a lot of Aberdeen boys going down in trial at that time. But no, I kind of home bird, kind of stayed at home.
Okay. Who were your first coaches and what did you learn?
First coaches was Bobby Clark, Lenny Taylor and Teddy Scott. That was my first coaches. So they had this for about a couple of years, from about 14 to about 16 to running full time. So it was just probably a lot to do with discipline, how to play the game, how to set up a team, how to play your position. It was mostly that, things that you would never get taught in school.
Had you always played left wing? Had that always been your position?
No, I started off at left wing for Northfield and I played through the middle. Luckily enough, I could play a number of positions. But it was probably in the early days, I was playing back then when you had left winger and a right winger and 2 centre forwards. So you'd probably, it was like equivalent to a 4-2-4, you know. So, no, it was a kind of speedy left winger without the speed.
See, when you first signed your professional contract, did you have to move into digs or did you stay with your folks?
No, I was with my folks. Coming from Aberdeen, obviously, I was still staying with mum and dad. So, no, I was lucky enough I could stay in the house and go home every day. But a lot of the boys obviously moved up from Glasgow and Edinburgh. They were all round about. There was a couple of digs round about my house in Maastricht. A few digs round about there, the guys that the club had put them into.
Okay. How beneficial was your loan spell at Lewis United?
Loved it, honestly. It was a learning curve. I was playing under 16s, I think, at the Lads Club, Aberdeen Lads Club. And I think I was a few months away from going in full time. And Sir Alec got in touch, said, I want to loan you out to Lewis United. So I thought, yeah, okay, well, fair enough, we'll go along. And these were real guys. These are real football guys, hard guys. But I tell you what a learning curve to learn the game and to get a kick up the backside in games from these guys who were these pros. You know, it was a great learning curve. And funny enough, we used to have to travel up to like Fraserburghs and Commonstones and places like that. So we used to meet at Simpson's Bar at the Cowdrey Hall. So we used to meet there about 12 o'clock. So I was like 15, 16-year-old. So the guys would go and have a couple of pints before they got. And they're like, Willie, what do you want? And I'm like, no, give me a Coke. He said, okay, I'll have a shandy. He's having about 4 shandies before they go on the bus to go and play. It was honestly, but that was just what it was like back then. It was the guys were superb, great characters, you know. Brilliant. That's how you learn. That's how you learn.
Did it take you long to sort of move through the ranks and break into the first team?
Pataudry? No, I was lucky enough to get in there really early. At that time, Sir Alec was throwing a few young boys in, give them like match experience to see if they could handle the experience of playing there. So no, I think I was lucky enough to get in there really early and get a taste of it. Before you actually played, he would put you on the bench or use you as 14th man because obviously there was only 2 subs back then. But he would give you just a sense of how the dressing room was and how it felt before games and just the ins and outs. And you'd you get a sense of how if we got beat. You got a sense of the kind of bollocking after a game as well, so you knew what to expect when that came.
How influential was he at this time on you, Fergie?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much. Great man management, you know, like a great kind of. You don't realise these things till you're older, you know, and then you speak to the guys you played with at the time, you know. But he knew how to handle every player in a different way. That you hear stories over the years, you know. It's like he knew who to put a hand round, he knew who to get a ball in, a kick up the backside. On that side of it, you know, I was one time we played. I think I was about 17. We played at Airdrie. And it was one of these League Cup, and there was group sections. So we played at the old Broomfield, and I was playing, and I think we got beat 1-0 or 2-1, and he came in after the game, and he went absolutely mad. And it's like, Falconer, you'll never play for this team again. It was that kind of scenario that he used to do with everybody. So I've gone home that night, and I'm like, my mum and dad, oh, that's me finished. I'll have to get the job section and see where I'm going to go next. So coming into Pataudry the next day, walking down the big corridor, and Fergie had his office halfway down, and all I heard was like, Falconer, get in here now. And he had a look to see if anybody was watching, and he pulled me in. So he went through the whole thing, said, you should have done this, you should have done that, I wanted you to do this in the game, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, then he said, and by the way, don't tell anybody you were in this room, you know. So I'm like, okay, then fair enough. So the next couple of days go on, and we're playing Dundee United away. And he would go for a pre-match at the hotel, and he reads out the team, and I'm in the team, you know. But that was a kick up the backside he gave me by saying, you'll never play for the team again, but this is what you should have done after nobody's seen it. And we played well. I think I set up the winner and we won 1-0, you know, and that was his kind of man management. And it's funny, when I talked to the boys in the squad at that time, everybody got pulled into the manager's room, you know, without anybody knowing they were there, you know. That was his man management.
Brilliant. Just before that, obviously, you made your debut against Watershine in Belgium. Is that a moment that you've not really forgotten about?
No, you remember that for the rest of your career, the rest of your life, you know. It was just kind of one of these bizarre, luckily enough, obviously, to win the first 5 ones. So he took a few of the younger ones across, put us on the bench. and never expected any of it of getting on. I think it was just thought it was there for the experience sort of thing, you know. And if I can remember, but I think I actually came on for Stuart Kennedy, who got injured. He had a really bad knee injury and he missed the final. And I came on for Stuart in that game. But it's just a blur. You're on the pitch, you're making your debut at that age. I just turned 17, and then you're running about for the first 5-10 minutes like a headless chicken, you know, until you actually get a touch of the ball and then you calm down a bit, you know. So that was a kind of. But it was funny at that age. It was, as I said, a lot of young boys at that age thrown in at different games along the line.
See, did you travel to Gothenburg?
No, what happened is, cut a long story short, I was playing for the Scotland under 18s, and we had a tournament down in England. So it was the tournament, so it was exactly the same time as Gothenburg. So everybody for the club went to Gothenburg except me and the training centre down in England. That's where we were staying. So it was unbelievable how I'd missed the final, because it was Andy Roxburgh at the time as the manager of under 18. So no, I completely missed the final.
Oh, got it. Okay.
No, it was unbelievable, you know. It was one of these things.
Yeah, it's just I can't believe that. Okay, how important was the following pre-season? So season 83-84. Did you feel more determined to break through now that you'd had that taste of first-team football?
Yeah. You always thought you could get into the team, you know, but there was a lot of experienced guys, a lot of experienced pros at that time, you know, and you were kind of looking at maybe injuries or suspensions kind of at the start of the season to get yourself in there. But you were always involved in the squad. As I say, you were always like maybe on the bench, or you were like spare man, or you were always travelling. You always took you to the games, you know. So just to give you that experience. But no, you always thought you could because you've been involved in it. You always thought you could get in there and do a job for it. Yeah.
Okay, because that season you played 15 games, you scored 2 goals. So how were you feeling about your progress at that time?
Yeah, at that time I think you think it's going well. You're obviously looking to play more games, to get involved. But as I say, it was very hard because you had a lot of experienced guys there, but you had a lot of younger boys who were really good players back then as well, who came through as apprentices with me, all kind of vying for maybe similar positions, you know. So it's funny how the manager kind of took it upon him to pick who he was wanting. You'd probably know on a Thursday when you played practice matches that you were involved in the practice match, you know, but that could change by a Friday. But you always knew you kind of, I might make it on Saturday, I might be in the team on Saturday night, I might be in the 11, you know.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, because the question about like your Peter Weirs and your John Hewitts and your John McMasters and your Ian Angus's, let me change the question slightly. So if you got in and say John Hewitt didn't, and if John Hewitt got in and you didn't, did you guys sort of, you know, were you all matey about it? Did you understand? Did you encourage each other? All that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, it was, but totally like there was no kind of anger or petulance that somebody else got in. It was more you're thinking of how's the manager thinking, which nobody knew at the time anyway. You know, I think it was more of that. How was he in before me? But it was funny because as the seasons go on, you used to look at it, and Sir Alec used to pick you for games that you'd done well in. So after the Watershire game, we came back on a Wednesday. On the Saturday, I was on the bench against Celtic, and I came on, done really well. So it was amazing for like that amount of time after that, for the years on. He always involved me against Celtic, you know. And he'd done that with similar players who'd done well against Rangers or done well against Motherwell, you know.
Okay.
We always done well against that teams. But another one was when I came back for the Watershire game, and I'm talking about the Celtic game. He put me on, and I was playing up against Roy Aitken. So Roy Aitken being Roy Aitken, he was just trying to wind me up the whole game. He's like, "Oh, so you're the new boy, are you? Yeah. Do you think you could take me on? Yeah, do you think you could take me on? Get the ball and take me on." So as the ball get played, I'm like, "Oh no," you know, and he just goes, So that was learning as well. It was mind games, but Roy was brilliant at that. As if to say, "You'll never beat me. You can't take me on. I'm too good. I'm too good." It was all that kind of mind games. So you soon learn quickly. But,
Did that ever? Did that ever bother you? Did the mind games ever bother you?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I think back then when you're younger, maybe you think about it for a wee while, but as soon as that's over, you've learned to handle it, and you've learned that if you're 17, you're playing against a 16-year-old, wind him up.
Yeah.
It's that kind of learning curve.
Okay. Yeah. For the UPES Doza game, so you came on as a second half substitute. We were able to turn the game around. I know it's a long time ago, fella, but can you recall what the boss said to you before you went on?
Yeah, no, I think it was just similar to kind of, he put me on the left. Well, obviously, Mark McGee was through the middle. He kind of put me on the left, and kind of instructions were to get past the fullback and get crosses into the box as rapid as we can. Because I think, just on remembrance, I think the goals came really late, didn't they? Then
so
the winner came just after 94, 95 in extra time.
Yeah, so the equaliser came with 2 minutes to go, which took us into extra time, and then he got the winner about 5, 6, 7 minutes into extra time.
Yeah,
extra time.
I'll always remember it on the left and crossing it for Mark and him putting it in. It was like the atmosphere at Pittodrie that night, which like every European game was unbelievable. The place just lifted, especially being 2-0 down in the first leg. So, no, I think it was along the lines of kind of get past the fullback and get the crosses into the box and kind of upset them a bit, So it kind of worked out well for me on that game.
How was he in the dressing room after the game?
Yeah, no, he was delighted. You could never tell. You could come and after a game like that, and he'd go right through every player, or he could come in and him and Archie were happy enough. But I think it was just the relief of getting through. And as I say, the result after being 2-0 down. And I think I even got a well done or maybe a pat in the back, which was good.
Were you hopeful of making the Porto games?
Yeah, but again, you had players in positions that he always kind of is, whether it be League Cups or Scottish Cups or to the end of the league, if you look at Cup finals as well, he always had the experienced boys in for that Cup finals or the semi-finals or the quarter-finals. He always had the experienced boys back in then. And round about that, you'd pitch us younger ones in, So you're always hopeful, and maybe not starting, but you're always hopeful of being in that squad and travelling and being involved and on the bench as well.
Okay. For the following season, so I worked out that you played 12 out of the first 13 games at the beginning of the season. So did you think that was your breakthrough?
Yeah, you think that you're doing well, you're in the team, playing regularly, which makes a hell of a difference, a hell of a kind of confidence booster, and just getting experience, And for some, I just can't think back then how it happened. I don't know if I got injured in one of the games just after that or whatever. But it was strange how I played all that games and then it came to a kind of standstill.
Yeah, because I worked out you only played 2 more games that season.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I had a bad knee injury, but I'm just thinking it was more kind of middle to late season. I had a knee injury, I was out for 5 or 6 weeks. But round about the start of the season, I can't recall being injured. So it was a strange one where I kind of went from 12 games to kind of no games,
Yeah. Mind games? I don't know.
I don't know if it was just that he put a couple of players in and they done what I'd done in the first 12 games, and on that side of it. I don't know. It's hard one to recall. I was trying to think back.
Okay, no worries. You did though play enough games to earn the championship medal, so that must be a special accolade for you.
Yeah, no, honestly, brilliant. Probably at the time you don't kind of appreciate it because it's not a blasé thing, but the rest of the team and the dressing room, there was medals going about every season. It was like as if it was a natural thing, and you don't realise it till you actually left that club or the manager left the club how hard it is to actually win a medal of any sort, whether it be a league or a League Cup or a Scottish Cup, you know. But no, that was a special one, getting that one. There was the usual kind of the guys who the first team, the experienced boys, the medals. It was amazing how it happened. I think the medals came in the dressing room in a box, and it was just a big free for all. Who could get a medal first? You know, who could grab a medal? Teddy Scott had a list, and Teddy would come in after that. But I think Archie just came in and dumped a box, you know, and it was like just like last man standing to get a medal, you know.
No way. So was that I'll work that out, but I think you was that when you came on before the BP Youth Cup final? Am I correct in saying that? And I think you got presented with the league trophy. So would it have been then?
No, I think it was before. I think that was they'd done that for like a public, the pictures and the cameras sort of thing.
Okay, so it was before.
I think it was maybe that morning, maybe, or the day before. I think it was, if I can remember. Yeah,
it's amazing because that's what happened to the Lisbon Lions after the game. It's just shoebox full of medals. Take your pick, guys. Yeah,
no, it was just amazing how it, and I can imagine how structured it is nowadays. And obviously getting a medal after a game on the podium sort of thing, but back then it was just like box gets delivered to the club, the box gets thrown in a dressing room, you know. Happened back then.
Unbelievable. Okay, the following season, 85-86, you only played 10 first team games. So was there a sense of frustration at this point?
Yeah, there was, because you kind of just getting to an age that you think you should be playing every week. But again, it's you do think back and think, God, what the squad they had was unbelievable, you know, and it was very hard to get in that team, you know, and unless you were the regulars like the McLeishes, the Millers, the Leightons back then, the Strackens, whatever at that time, you know. There was a lot of chopping and changing, maybe forward players more than any other. But no, you just kind of get to the stage that you think, I should be playing a lot more here, but you're still there and you're still enjoying it, and you're still enjoying the atmosphere and the winning mentality, you know, and you're obviously still learning the game as well. But you probably look at other players at the same age who are playing regular in the Scottish Premier League at that time, you know, guys who used to meet up when you met up with the under-18s or the under-21, the Scotland under-21s, you know, that are playing like 30, 40 games a season.
Did you travel for the 85 League Cup final against Hibs?
85?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Were you on the? Because I looked at the team and I couldn't see you on the team. Were you picked?
No, but I was in the squads, and I think it was on the squad for every cup final. The Hibs one, there was the Hearts one as well, the Rangers. Every squad we travelled with the team, and that again back then you had the two subs, you know, which was always kind of. But again, it's funny when you look back, as I said, that the cup, especially cup final teams. You look at your starting lineups, you know, there's no kids in the team. You know, it's all the experienced pros that are in that teams. You know, but we all travelled. We take about 20 of us down to the games and be involved in the games.
But did he always make you feel part of the victory?
Yeah, totally. After the games, yeah. We used to go back to Glen Eagles or St Andrews after the game and celebrate back then. And you always felt you were part of the club, although you never played in the game. You always felt you were part of the celebrations. Never felt left out.
Okay, because again, the following season you started to feature an awful lot more, and then all of a sudden Sir Alex leaves. So can you recall that whole period, and what was the mood like in the camp?
Yeah, I can remember. I can still remember it. It's like in the afternoons, the younger ones, we used to go out with Archie Knox to Seaton Park in the afternoon. So we trained with the first team in the morning, then the younger ones and a few of the older ones coming back from injury would come out, and Archie would take us for a session at Seaton Park. So I'll never forget, we're about an hour into the session, and the big wine Mercedes appears, Fergie's Mercedes appears at Seaton Park. And the horn goes a couple of times, so Archie goes across to the car, and tells one of the older guys, to take the training. So we're training. So about an hour later, Archie's still sitting in the car. Something's going on here. There's something up here, Archie comes back out, car disappears. Next day, it's like Fergie's going to Man United. So that was the talk, obviously, of Fergie asking Archie, "Do you want to come with me to Man United?" sort of thing, So I remember that clearly, how that kind of happened, and it was a kind of turmoil. Everybody's like, "Well, what's going to happen now?" That's a strange one. He can't leave the club. It's like he's built this up. What we're going to do now, and who's going to come in, and what's going to happen next, sort of scenario, because he'd been there for so long. He took all that players in, so everybody was in a kind of same mentality.
Okay, so when Ian Porterfield came in, was there a sense that you're almost having to start again?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Ian knew obviously the older players, the experienced players, and the Cliche Millers sort of thing at that time, But the younger ones, we were 19, 18, 19, 20 at the time. So yeah, you had to kind of start again. There was a lot of practice matches earlier on. Obviously, he's looking to see what he's got. He obviously took a lot from like Teddy Scott. Teddy had a lot of influence to tell him about us all and what we could do as well. But no, it was a kind of a new lease of life again. It was like training was like obviously a lot quicker, a lot faster, because you've got a new manager, you've got a new assistant manager. So no, it was kind of trying to impress.
Okay, because you must have made some impression on him, because his first season, that's when you played your most games in one season. So I worked out you played 46 games, you scored 11 goals in that season. So yeah, you were obviously enjoying playing for him.
And the funny thing is, see that 11 goals, the majority was me playing at left back.
Ah, of course, yeah.
I came in, he played me a couple of times up front, and he changed the strikers about, and then I'm sure it was David Robertson got injured, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Do you think you could play left back?" And I said, "Well, I played centre half before, a few reserve games and that." I said, "Yeah, no, shouldn't be a problem, So we played, I think Dundee was my first game at left back, and I played Dundee for Todgy, played really well. I'm not sure if I scored that game, but it was just the inkling. I was playing left back at the time, and every cross that came into the box, I was at the back post. It was just a natural instinct to try and get in the box, So Porterfield, Ian's like, he's at the side shouting, "Get back," and Willie Miller out in the Cliche telling us to get back, because obviously they love the cover. The two fullbacks that cover them. But no, I really enjoyed it, and played a lot of games there, and enjoyed that position. As I said, I was lucky enough I could play that majority of position.
Yeah. How much was the club lifted by Charlie Nicholas signing?
Yeah, I think the whole place, it was like kind of the Hollywood signing. It was like I think we were watching it the day he came in and signed. I think we were watching the next morning before he came in. And we arrived at Aberdeen Airport, and he looked like Bono from U2. He came in, he had the big hat on, the big Trilby hat and the big coat and the boots and that. Like he was like a big film star. But no, Charlie was great. Charlie was great for the dressing room. He was still a good player at that time as well. Really clever player, although he probably never had the pace he did when he was younger. But really clever to sit in pockets. Probably back in that time, he was equivalent to like a Teddy Sheringham idea, that kind of player who would just sit in the pockets and play passes. But he got his fair share of goals as well. And he definitely lifted everybody in the dressing room.
Okay.
London story.
Let's talk about the 87 League Cup final. So, can you remember when you got the nod to start the game?
Yeah, I think it was. I think we were in the hotel actually the day of the game that he gave us the team, and sometimes he would give the team out the day before. But I think he gave that team on. We used to stay at the Excelsior when we travelled to Glasgow, the Excelsior at the airport. So I think it was like a pre-match meal had there, and then we had a team meeting. They announced the team, and I was playing. I think I was playing before them, so I kind of really expected to be in the team. I would have been disappointed if I was left out, but it still gives you a buzz when you he picks you for a cup final team.
Because you played really well that day, created the penalty for us, and then scored that cracking header to put us 3-2 up. So
Yeah,
I know
that's right.
the result was disappointing. You played well that day.
Yeah, no, I was happy enough with the performance. Obviously, the first one when Nicky Walker brought us down for the penalty, and it's probably one of them you look back, could have got onto it, could have took it around him and put it in myself, sort of thing, you know. But we got the penalty for that, and then it was a cracking game. It was just an end-to-end game. They had a really good squad of players at that time, Rangers as well. You know, they had a really good kind of international class players at that time. But so I was lucky enough to get in the end of a cross and put it in. I think it was maybe about 7 or 8 minutes to go. So I've got my header on it. It's flew into the top corner. I'll never forget just going celebrating it just behind the goal. I think it was Brian Grant was on the bench and we hugged and that. But the crowds at the Old Hampden then and the terracing, it was unbelievable atmosphere. That's what you remember about the old Hampden. It was like everybody jammed in, you know, and the atmosphere was singing. The Aberdeen Rangers fans making it the cup final. So I've scored, and you're thinking, I've just scored the winner in the cup final here, you know. So you're thinking, right, okay, I've just scored the winner in the cup final. And so the minutes are going down, and then like kibosh, it's like Graham Roberts went up with Willie Miller, and today I'll always say to the Rangers guys, it was a clean foul, it was a Stonewaller foul. He fouled Willie, and Robert Fleck put it in, you know. And unfortunately, we got beaten penalties. It's funny, I'll never forget the penalties. It was like Trevor Francis was playing for them at the time, and I'd never seen it before, but he just took one step back. And I never was thinking he'll never score that. Nobody takes one step back and scores a penalty when he stuck it in the corner, you know. But you know, it was disappointing. It was Peter Nicholas who felt sorry for hitting the bar for this penalty.
How was the dressing room after that game? What do you do? Do you go around each other, or do you just leave it alone? Do you just leave people with their own thoughts?
Yeah, I think the manager will have his say. You know, obviously unlucky guys, but I think you just kind of leave everybody to get on with it. You know, there's not much you can say after games like that, especially when you get beaten penalties. It was a cracking game, but obviously you're beat. Winners are winners, you know. It's nobody really remembers the settings in these kind of cup finals. But no, everybody kind of you're in the dressing for 10 minutes, then you're in the showers, you're stripped, you're back in the bus, you know, and like get the crate of beer out and drown yourself.
When did you first start to have thoughts of moving on?
Never really had thoughts. Probably the first time that I thought about it was we played Dundee United at Tannadice, and it was the replay of the Scottish Cup semi-final of Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
And I'd played all the games up till then, and then for some reason he dropped me to the bench and put David Robertson in, you know. So I'll never forget, I was walking up the track, it was at Dens Park, I was walking up the track, and one of the reporters back then who'd done the Evening Express was Ali Guthrie. And Ali Guthrie was sitting in the press box, and he actually said to me a couple of weeks after it, he says, I'll never forget the look on your face walking up that track as if like, I'm not playing here, you know what I mean? It's like, and he says, you could see the anger on your face, and I was really angry to be missing out in a semi-final, you know. So probably from then on, you're thinking time to move on, because the contract was up at the end of the season. And back then, you never really signed contracts. You let contracts run down. Clubs let contracts run down back then, you know. So you never really kind of signed before it was up. So probably that was probably the first kind of thoughts of kind of, well, maybe try something else here.
So when did you find out that Watford were interested in you?
I actually got a phone call from, it was one of the press guys in England, that said that Steve Harrison was a manager. He just came Taylor, who moved to Aston Villa, and he says Steve Harrison's been up at a couple of your games. So what Steve Harrison used to do, he never phoned the club up and said, like, leaves a couple of complimentary tickets or whatever. What he used to do when he went and watched players was he used to go into the crowd and sit next to the punters. So he'd open his bag of crisps and that, and he'd nudge the guy next to him and say, he says, how's that Faulkner done this year? You know, has he been any good, you know? And the guy was like, well, he's been absolutely hopeless, or he's been absolutely brilliant, whatever he may say. And this is how he used to watch players, by getting the reaction of the punters.
Really?
Tell him where he should be going with him, you know what I mean? And it was just a kind of, how's he doing, by the way? How's he playing? What's he up to? You know what I mean? Does he get through it? It was all, he was asking more questions. And he told me this after I'd actually signed. And he said, this is how, and he tells all the players this, he says, this is how I scout the players, you know.
Oh, wow. So was it a difficult decision to leave?
It was, yeah. As I said, my contract run down. I had about 4 or 5 teams actually that I'd spoke to. I'd spoke to Leicester, David Pleat. I'd spoke to Bobby Campbell at Chelsea. I'd spoke to who else was there? I spoke to Middlesbrough. I spoke to Bradford. I spoke to about 5 or 6 clubs at the time, and kind of funny story was Steve Harrison invited us down to Watford. So it was me and my wife now, Alison, but it was just my girlfriend. She was just my girlfriend then. So I said, "Do you want to come down?" I said, "I'm meeting the chief exec and I'm meeting the manager. So you want to come down?" She said, "Yeah, okay, we'll come down." So they flew us down, picked us up at the airport, took us into Regent Park, the hotel. It was in off the park, I think it was called, right in Regent's Park. So we're going to the boy. He says, "Okay, we're going to have a bit of lunch." So I said, "Oh, okay, that's fair enough." He says, "We're going up. We've got a room upstairs." In the lift, up to the room. So he knocks on this door. So nobody answers. Knocks on the door again. Door opens. Elton John is standing there. He's got a lime green suit on and a white Panama hat. He's like, "Right, you must be Willie Falconer for Aberdeen," and you come. So we went into his suite, and see, to be fair, his football knowledge was unbelievable. He knew everything about football. You know, he did know his stuff. You know, so that was the kind of marketing ploy of getting players to kind of sign for the club. You know, so we ended up going downstairs to the restaurant, lunch down there, and his last words were like, it was like, "I hope you sign for the club." You know, but so that was my first kind of taking Watford.
Brilliant. Did Aberdeen want to keep you?
Yeah, Ian Porterfield moved on. Alex Smith and Jockey Scott came in. So I had a couple of meetings with them. They pulled me into the office. And it was funny, Alex and Jockey got on really well with the two of them. But it was like, they'd obviously planned it. It was like good cop, bad cop, you know? So you know Jockey is obviously the bad cop. So Alex Smith's like, "Right, we want you to stay in that." And then Jockey would be like, "Why do you not want to stay? And you're a disgrace and you should be playing for this club and all that." Then Alex Smith would say, "Come on, Jockey, calm down." It's like, think about it and all that. And Jockey's like, No. He says, "He should be signing for us." So it was brilliant, the double act, you know. And I'd said to him, I said, "Listen, guys, I've got a chance to go down to England. Just want to try something new, you know." And the two of them were great, you know. The two of them were great, and I ended up playing for Jockey at Dundee.
Okay, if you could turn the clock back and change anything from your time with Aberdeen, what would you change?
What do you mean, like football-wise, or
So it could be anything. It's like, for example, I asked Gordon Strachan the same question, and he said he would never have got his hair permed. I asked John Ingalls a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he would have been more respectful of the fans and would have probably knuckled down a little bit more and been more professional. So it's like, you know, if there's anything that you think back and you maybe think, "Oh, I wish that had happened," or "I wish I'd done that differently."
Yeah, I think I think it would probably be knuckled down to one position, to be honest, because I was quite kind of laid back that I'm thinking, well, back then it was like you're a versatile player, you could play anywhere, but it kind of counted against you a lot of times, you know. So I think you would kind of knuckle down to kind of. It was good in some ways, but in other ways you were just wanting to get in there and play that position, you know. So something along that lines, you know, kind of on that side that you kind of push a bit more for kind of playing regular in the same position.
My thanks to Willie Falconer. If you are watching for the first time and you haven't already subscribed and you did enjoy today's watch, it would be a huge help if you could subscribe to the channel, please. We are edging ever closer to 2,000 subscribers. That's it. We are done. I really hope you enjoyed today's watch with Willie Falconer, and I will see you again for another brand new episode of The Vault. Until then, bye for now.